there's always maybe. When there's no answers, that's what faith becomes. And all that's within me says, loved enough, you shall be once again. And if it's time for us to fall, well, don't suppose that this is all, and just remember what was here. And if the time has come to fly, well, let's not even say goodbye, 'cause if love means something, then there's always maybe. May a beautiful surprise be there waiting to leave us breathless, though our breath has gone, and hearts forever beating but not broken, kissed by the beauty of the poetry and the sun. It's time for us to fall, well, don't suppose that this is all, just remember what was here. And if the time has come to fly, let's not even say goodbye, 'cause if love means something, then there's always maybe. Sweet bird, you must fly, and tell the land that I love and I miss her so. May the dust and the light around her dance and whisper that I am waiting so slow. If it's time for us to fall, don't suppose that this is all, just remember what was here. And if the time has come to fly, let's not even say goodbye, 'cause if love means something, then there's always maybe. There's always maybe. There's always maybe.
Hi, I'm Monica Mansfield, and you're watching Mostly Rock and Roll. It is a huge delight to have Martyn Joseph with us today from Wales, visiting and touring in the United States. Martyn, it is just wonderful to have you here. We have had a wonderful show with you, and I've heard so much about you from shared music circles about how terrific of a musician you are. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's a pleasure, Monica. I'm very happy to be here.
Is it hard to ask if you have favorite songs on different CDs, or is that really like denying another song its due?
Well, to be honest, Monica, I'm not really a fan. You know, I don't go home and put me on. You know? I suppose what I'm looking for is that progress in your work. You know, and I can look back at early albums, and whilst I can see the good in them and say, well, that was that. You know, you only see life from where you stand, and so again, it's about this articulation of the journey. But also, as you go on, you become a better writer, you become a better player, you learn how to empathize in a way that makes sense to the listener. There's a song called Cardiff Bay, which seems to mean a lot to guys. Actually, it's hard to write for guys. Springsteen does that so well. You ladies are a little easier to connect with sometimes. You're willing to go to those places of emotion, whereas men are taught that not to go there. Big boys don't cry, all that sort of stuff. So Cardiff Bay is a song that, you know, if I had to say this is a song I wrote, there's a song called Archive on here that I co-wrote with my friend Stuart Henderson. And that song, probably those two songs right now, I would say this is what I did. But, you know, there's a lot of work here, and I don't study it from the point of view of someone who appreciates it. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, because people will come to your work and say, this song really means that, and I'm always amazed by that, because I do this because I need to do it. I really do. But I don't study it from the point of view who's someone who comes to it as a fan. But if I write songs and they're a use to people, then that to me that's the gold disc on the wall. You know, I don't need anything else. Well, the ashtrays are full, and today somehow sung. I'd ask for a sign, but the prophets are drunk, and the sirens are telling the news of the night. Girls waiting for taxis have started to fight. Well, maybe a genie will quietly appear. But whoever it was that brought me here, it's time to take me home. And the glory is missing from this hollow room, like if Brian who knew better and jilted the groom. And I'm trying to work out what it is I should be. I'm a dented saint searching for some sanctuary, and I'm remembering grace and the things I hold dear. But whoever it was that brought me here, it's time to take me home. Take me home. Yeah, Now the clowns, the clairvoyants, they are aiming at truth. And in the babble of the rabble, I'm still headed for you. And those masters of war, they will not go away. And though the bleak sky is burdened, well, I pray anyway. And though ironies drain me, I'll now try sincere. Whoever it was that brought me here, whoever it was, whoever you are, whoever it was that brought me here, it's time to take me home. It's time to take
Now, are you an avid book reader?
You know what? Someone said that when we buy a book, we fool ourselves into thinking that we buy the time to read the book. I love books. I love going into bookstores and how the endless possibilities of life are all before you, and that smell of the page and stuff. I wish I had more time to. By the time I get to read,
the stack is much
I'm usually
higher,
so
right?
tired and at the end of the day. But it's certainly something I'd like to invest more time in. But yeah, I read. I try to. I don't read anywhere near as much as I should, but I love reading and going to movies and stuff. Yeah.
I was just wondering if in the books that you've enjoyed and just the reading that you do, if that influences some of your lyrics or keeps you a stronger lyricist just by reading
Absolutely.
great works of other people.
And that's another thing I have to say to students: you have to read. You have to feed yourself literature. You have to feed yourself news. What's going on in the world? Be open. All that sort of stuff. I'll never forget reading East of Eden by John Steinbeck, you know, one of your greatest sons, and just sort of thinking, oh my God, you know, all of life is here in this tale. You know, the problem with it, as a songwriter, is you've got about 4 minutes. You know, he's got, you know, 400 pages or whatever it is, you know. So it's how do you grab that same sense and put it into a song, as it were. But yeah, to be inspired, you know, when people say they get writer's block, you know, I sympathize, but I sometimes think, well, you need to get out. You need to get beyond your own little world and see the life of others and read and absorb some stuff so that you're going to be inspired. You've got to go and find that stuff. It won't always come to you as you sit in your kitchen with your piano or your guitar waiting for inspiration. Go and find it. You know.
You have a very strong sense of a social conscience. I find that really wonderful, and you walk the walk. I know you have some organizations that are very important to you that you've used during for some of your concerts that you're playing. Can you tell me some about that? And also, I'm wondering where that came from. Was it a teacher or your parents?
Well, where it came from, I'm sure some of it's from my parents. I should say it was. But having said that, my parents aren't activists. They're not sort of. In fact, I don't really agree with my father's politics. He's probably never going to see this, so it doesn't make any difference. But you know, we would be at odds on politics, but they taught me how to love. I was loved, and there was no doubt, you know, and I think that's the start, that you're loved, and so you realize that there is good in the world, you know. If you're not loved, then life takes a different turn, sadly for many people. So I had that as a basis. And in about 1988, I went and saw poverty for the first time in a pretty severe way. And
where were you?
I was actually in Thailand, which people wouldn't perhaps think of as a third world country, but there's certainly, there was this huge disparity in Bangkok City, but in the slums that I was taken to, leprosy missions, I saw the sex slave trade of young girls being taken from their villages, their parents being offered, you know, we'll look after them, and then being thrown into holes in the ground and only let out once they decided they would sell them. I saw that firsthand. And for kind of a middle-class kid from Wales who, you know, yeah, I know there's bad things in the world, blah, blah, blah. You know, this was something of a crisis at the time, you know. And I remember sitting there in the dirt with a family who had absolutely nothing, thinking, I can't go back and sing those easy fix, simple songs anymore. Because my earlier writing was about answers, whereas I feel that my writing since that moment really has been about embracing questions and doubt. And so I came back home and thought, you know, this is where it changes for me. I became radicalized to a point at that moment. I was 28 years old, so it wasn't, you know, that was late in that sense. And so my writing began to change, and I began to look for these causes. I wanted to use the music to try and highlight things to even the small audience that I have, but I at least thought, well, I can pass this on, you know. And so my reputation for that grew from there. It's interesting because my last few records haven't been quite so politicized but then I think, you know, I've said an awful lot in the last 10 years, so sometimes people think, oh, he's banging on again. So it's nice to, you know, write about different things too.
What was your work with World Vision?
Well, yeah, I've worked with World Vision, which is about child sponsorship. I work with I'm patron of an organization called Advantage Africa in the UK that works with AIDS-stricken communities on the African continent. Another group out in Canada called Somos, who've built an orphanage down in Guatemala. I'll be going to Palestine this summer. You know, again, that's about getting out there to some extent and seeing and feeling this stuff and trying to understand, and that word "make sense" I think is very important. Springsteen talks about, you know, making sense of the world an awful lot. And when we see these things, you know, some people just, I can't deal with it, it's too sad. But that's not me. I have to go there. You know, I remember when I went to Poland, I had to go to Auschwitz. I had to feel it. I had to see it. And so, Advantage Africa, Somos. I work with Christian Aid in the UK, World Vision in Canada. I'm going to be doing some work this tour with Leprosy Mission America over here, who feel that they now have the ability to completely wipe leprosy off our planet if they only have the resources to do it. It's there. We don't need to live with this thing anymore. And this is a country that, you know, has you know, there's probably about 6 individuals in this country who could sort that straight away if they wanted to financially, you know.
Right.
So that's the job of the artist, to go in there and prod and poke and make a painting of ourselves so that we can, you know, keep this stuff right where it needs to be.
Craving for caress, a pristine revelation that there still is righteousness. My comfort and my passion, and my pride without the fall. Your presence is like incense at the entrance to the hall. You're as sacred as the Jordan. Mystery, my rainbow shades of serenity. The hummingbirds of Georgia on their flight to Hudson Bay. Your enduring heart sustains me through the journey of each day. My keen anticipation that the summer will supply aroma of an infinite July. You are quietness, you are elation, you are my anthem of this night. The reason I'm not fearful come the dimming of the light, As sacred as the Jordan and all the mystery, my rainbow shades of serenity. Birds of Georgia on their flight to Hudson Bay. Your enduring heart sustains me through the journey of each day. Sacred as the Jordan, all the mystery, my rainbow shades of serenity. And the hummingbirds of Georgia on their flight to Hudson Bay. Your enduring heart sustains me through the journey of each day. Moment I am missing, my craving for caress, pristine revelation that there still is righteousness. You are wisdom, you are purity, smooth untrodden sand. The footprints I must follow in this broken promised land.
Can you give me an example of one time where you had the tiniest word or turn of a phrase, and then that turn became a whole song, just from like the tiniest little set of words?
Oh, that happens all the time. I sometimes do workshops on songwriting, and I tell the students one of the greatest things you can do is to go into any bookshop with a notepad and write down the titles of 20 great books, because a lot of people have done the work for you, right? They've really worked hard on getting those titles. Yeah. So you can look at a title, and sometimes there will just be like the God of Small Things, for instance. You know, that's a beautiful sense that, you know, that if God is God and God is big and massive, and that somehow He would care for every hair on your head and all that sort of stuff. That's a lovely concept. So the God of small things, and you can move with that and work with that. So that happens all the time. A little phrase will fall into your head, and you'll knock it around a little bit, and eventually come up with a song when the moment is right. I remember being here in America, actually, in my friend Barbara's house, and there was a book by someone called O'Brien called The Things We Carried, I think, and it was about Vietnam soldiers carrying their gear on their back, but also occasionally their fallen comrades. And I wrote that down, and I wrote a song called Things That We Have Carried Here. One day they will disappear, skin and bone. So that often a sentence, the English language, the poetry, the words are so powerful, you know. I only have to read about a paragraph of Dylan Thomas to want to go and write songs, because I don't know what he's saying half the time, but it's so epic, it's so beautiful that it makes me want to create the same, to somehow write words of joy, words of sadness, words of empathy, words of compassion, words of community. I can't think of any more examples off the top of my head, but I have a notebook full of things that I will suddenly write down, because I think, oh, that's a neat way of saying something, you know.
I sense your spirituality is important to you. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. How do you want me to elaborate about that?
However you wish to. It may be private, it may not.
Well, it's not so much private, it's just so much that I don't have, you know, when I said about answers to questions, I grew up, my first audience was a church audience. And I had that all going on, and as I say, when I saw poverty for the first time, that really was a threat to that, in a sense, because you know, people of faith are supposed to have these answers and have it all sorted out, and for me, it wasn't that. But then I met an amazing speaker from Australia who said that when he got to heaven, there were 3 things he wanted to ask God. And the first was why black people had been so badly treated on the planet. Secondly was why women had been so badly treated on the planet. And the third thing was why Jesus didn't go and visit John the Baptist when he was in prison. He said, because it sucks. He should have done, and it wasn't fair. And I thought, whoa, that's different.
Wow, that is different.
And so that was a catalyst to start my realizing that you can ask questions. You don't have to just take something on board and somehow go along and feel like you have to fit into this black and white world, because it's not. You know, there is mystery upon mystery upon mystery. And no one really knows. We can say that we know all this stuff, but nobody really knows what. Ever, you know, but there is that sense of a bigger picture, right? There is that sense that surely this can't be all for nothing. Just that's it, bye bye, whatever, you know. So I'm running with that. That runs, you know. Coben runs with that. You too run with that. I think Springsteen has run with a lot of that more lately. You know, he's realized that there is no salvation in a Cadillac. Ultimately, it's about something bigger than that. And so we struggle with these things. Some choose not to believe at all, and I think that's an incredibly brave thing. I don't think I'm brave enough to actually go for nothing, you know? So I take that on board. How you want to define that, I try not to define that anymore, you know? It was a Christian church that I was in, and if you want to put me against the wall, then I suppose that's what I am. But that word Christian has been hijacked, absolutely hijacked. By people of the same fundamental outlook as those that, you know, are doing a lot of damage in our work, and it's been hijacked over here by the right and all the rest of it. So I'm looking for something I would call a reasonable faith. I deal in apologetics, not assertions, and so that God bothering, shall we like, runs through themes within all of the songs. But the minute if you ever think I'm proselytizing, then it's time for me to, because that's not, because I'm on my own journey, I'm searching all that out. But at the end of the day, do I believe? Yes, I do.
It's beautiful. I really, you've said things in such an eloquent way that I would never have thought you could explain that way. That's really wonderful.
It's not a good time for God. It's not a good time. Atheists deplore him, hedonists ignore him, men with bombs adore him. Agnostics rarely need him, think tanks never heed unorthodoxy creeds him. It's not a good time for God. Not a good time, yeah. Singing alle, 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 Allah. Singing alle, 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 Allah. It's not a good time for God. Not a good time. The right wing have defaced, the left wing have displaced, and bigotry's disgraced him. Apocalyptics claim, prosperous preachers tame, perverted clerics shame him. It's not a good time for God. No, 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 no. Singing alle, 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 Allah. Singing alle, 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 Allah. It's not a good time for God. It's not a good time right now. Fashion sanitized, styles accessorized, robes and rings disguised. Mysticism hides, sophisticates to ride, evolution chides him. And the empty church is lost him, close friends double-crossed him, the crucifixion cost him. It's never been a good time for God. It's not a good time. Singing alle, 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 Allah. Singing alle, 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 Allah. Yeah, yeah. Singing alle, 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 Allah. Singing alle, 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 Allah.
Martyn, I need to thank you so much for coming, spending
Pleasure.
your day here with us. It was
pleasure.
a delight, a true delight, and time flew by really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And we thank you. And please come back to Boston area. We
I
would
will.
love to have you around, and
will.
we'll promote you and keep up all the great work.
I'll try. Thanks, Monica.
Thanks.
Thank you.